Snap, snap, clap.
What's going on, guys? I am SimpleSimon. I'm your comic book noob. Welcome to the NOOB universe. We are back. It's been a little while, but we've been doing other things. We've got the podcast going now. We finally got it done. How did you feel, Mark?
First one off the rank.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was good too.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
People seem to like it.
Yeah.
And it's available on Spotify now. So if you need something to listen to, if you want to listen to this guy just like on the way to work or for a long drive, the NOOB Absolute is available on Spotify and also YouTube Music.
YouTube Music.
That's right.
Wow. God, going up in the world.
That's right, man. Making it happen.
He's making it happen.
Eventually, I'll try to get it on the Apple podcasting too, but that seemed a little bit more, fidgety, so I didn't want to bother with it just yet. Anyway,
he'll do that when he.
we'll get there.
You'll do that when you do it full time, yeah.
Yes, when YouTube pays for the bills, yeah, absolutely. All right, so today we're going to be talking. Now, Mark's complaining. He's like, we've talked about this a million times, but
Is that your best impression of me?
Sorry, we've talked about this a million times.
You're a shocker.
Today we're going to talk about
I have to put up with.
not just the modern age of comic books, Mark,
Makes me cry.
but the ups and downs of modern age comics.
The ups and downs of modern day comics.
Yeah. Quick shout out to my Minions. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you're interested in exclusive members only videos, extended episodes of the NOOB, and exclusive emojis, hit the join button to find out more about channel membership. But remember, your membership is not required. The best way to support the channel is by liking and commenting on videos. I just want to read this little bit to you, which basically, when you look at modern age of comics on Wikipedia, this is the first paragraph, which sort of interested me, which is kind of like the thing that inspired me to do this episode today. So, the modern age of comic books is a period in the history of American superhero comic books, which began in the mid-1980s and continues through to present day. During approximately the first 15 years of this period, so up until about 2000, many comic books characters were redesigned, creators gained prominence in the industry, independent comics flourished, and larger publishing houses became more commercialized. True?
True.
And you were there through the whole time.
Yeah.
Long time. Hashtag comic book guy.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't put old in there. Thanks. Or
Golden
ancient.
age guy. So
Well,
I guess
many people did, not only like me, but a lot of people lived through it. And a lot of people, as soon as I point out that the best time in comics was, that 10-year period, 85 to 95. And people think about it, who lived through that time, and it's true. They think about it and they agree. It was the beginning of a new age, absolutely, where creatives were in charge of creating, instead of board members and executives and that sort of thing. So
what it also says is that basically some people also knew it as the dark age of comic books, because stories like Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen really,
catered to the adult reader.
First of their kind, I guess. They really kicked off.
Well, Alan Moore always writes from the gutter, and then he writes upwards from the gutter. That's what his style is. He has the hero's journey, from the gutter up into the stratosphere. So he lifts them up. So Dark Knight and all that era, it was just very good. Very good writing, very good character. It was just really good characterization, characters. Even though Batman's probably the most relatable character in the DC lineup, he's very easy to write because he's very relatable. You can give him anything. He's any genre, across every genre.
Well, he's just the man, right?
Yeah, he's across every genre. Whereas Marvel were a bit more relatable because they were all just people with extraordinary abilities. I mean, there's only a couple of characters with secret identities. Matt Murdock and Peter Parker pretty much have the ideologies with secret identities, and probably one more that I can't think of at the moment. So they're all relatable. They all had real problems as well through the 90s. The dark period when or 80s and 90s when Tony Stark was an alcoholic and the X-Men were hunted and feared and bullied and stuff in society and made out to be freaks, and they just wrote good creative stories that we all related to. It was great. It was awesome. Great stories. And
I guess they sort of came in the mainstream as well, in the sense that speculation sort of became a thing. I learnt about...
speculation didn't come to a thing until...
No, so I believe it was in the 90s when people started to...
Not really.
Apparently it was on the news. I looked into it. Apparently it was on the news that, like, you know, comic books could be a big investment. And it was due to things like the death of Superman being so popular and things like that. And then people started thinking things like all the foil covers and all that would be worth money. So people started buying up a lot of that stuff. But the value didn't hold because there were such big print runs, because comic books was sort of reached their peak. Because my discovery, or I guess when I was younger, the thing that made me realize that comic books sort of had some value was The Simpsons. There's that episode where they talk about Radioactive Man, Milhouse and Bart split the comic book, so he split buying it, and that was when I first sort of heard about comic books having some sort of value. And I was into comic books back then as well. But apparently that sort of all started during that time as well. I wasn't, you know, it's not like it is today.
No.
But yeah, apparently that all stemmed from that. It mentioned that indie comics obviously flourished, but that was mainly Image, right?
Yeah, of course, it was mainly Image.
Because what are the...
Dark Horse.
Were they around back then?
Yeah, of course. They had Star Wars. They had a lot of franchises. They had Aliens. They had
back in the 90s, in the 80s?
80s, yeah, of course.
What are the...
Remember, Aliens, the movie came out in 84. Dark Horse made their money off their franchises. Conan.
Which is smart, right?
Conan, Aliens, Predator, Star Wars was their big one. They had a couple of Star Wars comic books here and there, but their true ongoing series started after, so it was in the early 2000s.
But a lot of those IPs...
Late 90s, like 99, like after episode 1.
A lot of those IPs actually started at Marvel first.
Yeah, absolutely, in the 70s.
And then went to Dark Horse, right?
Yeah, but Marvel was making comic books off the scripts. They weren't making them off the movie. So when they did the adaptation, the comic book adaptation of, say, New Hope, it was off the script. They didn't off the movie. So if the script said describe the character, so that's how they drew it in the comic book.
Like Jabba the Hutt, isn't Jabba the Hutt?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they were going off the script. So it was different time. I mean, look, it's modern comics is just it's the big key about modern comics too is the variant covers.
That's much more modern. I mean, no, that started in the 90s as well, apparently.
Yeah, of course it did.
Image apparently were very big on that.
But also it's much more volatile now. When did you ever think, you know, G.I. Joe's going to have like 10 variant covers? You know, an indie company, you know. Yeah, apart from, you know, then when Marvel release a new book, they have 10 variant covers or 5 variant covers or something, you know. It's very volatile. So, you know, people, they bank on the cover buy.
So something else they mentioned in that thing that I just read was the redesign of characters, retcons and things like that. So that was a big period to, I guess, move them over from the really campy style versions of those characters to a more...
Yeah, well, they did that with Superman. John Byrne changed.
And that all started with what were you saying?
Crisis.
Crisis.
Infinite Earth. Yeah. So they just rebooted Superman. John Byrne rebooted Superman, made him less hokey and more modern in a sense of he wasn't a Boy Scout. You know, like the cheesy 1930s. 1940s type character. The look changed as well, like they went away from the barrel-chested Kurt Swan type look, gave him a longer cape. The Fortress of Solitude changed as well. You know, they just revamped him. And, you know, they did a good job.
But what impact do you think it had on the comic book industry to make books more for adults and things?
Because the adults had the money. they were having jobs, making money to buy the comic. I just think they realised it was a turn, and the turn was the Dark Knight Returns. That was the turn, and the turn was they realised the popularity of that. I've spoken about this before. The kids who were buying the comics had grown up, and now are reading more maturely. So they started writing more mature.
So just going back to like the explosion of the fancy covers, like embossed covers, holograms, and
what at the moment?
foil.
Modern,
No. When it first came out, let's say in the 90s, when that was like the thing. How did you react as a young man? You weren't that young, but you know, as a young man, how did you react to that? Like, because I remember as a kid going into Minotaur, and I remember seeing this Batman cover that was embossed, and I was like, this is so cool.
What they did a lot back then is they did cover A was embossed. It wasn't a variant cover.
Yes, and then the variant would just be not special, right?
There was no variants back then. It was just that's it.
They'd do maybe another print?
Maybe another print, yeah. So a lot of people are misconstrued in the sense of, you know, the McFarlane Spider-Man #1. There's like a colour, there's a silver and a gold. Yeah. But in realistic, the colour was the first print. I think the gold was the third print and the silver was the second print.
Yeah.
So, but they still came bagged, they still came everything the same, but yeah, that's the difference.
And sometimes there was the direct edition versus the newsstand, which could often be different.
Correct.
For example,
correct.
I had the first issue of Bartman, which had the foil on the front.
Do you know what that means? Direct and not direct?
Direct was like would go straight to the comic shops, wasn't it?
Correct.
And,
only comic book shops.
Newsstand would have the barcode.
Newsstand would be like magazine shops, you know, that sort of thing. Not comic book specialty shops. Yeah, back then they don't do that anymore, obviously. But yeah, that's what the difference was.
And the newsstands are obviously more sought after back then because they were a less lower print run.
Yeah.
But again, how did you react being younger back then, seeing the foil?
It was awesome. I never really chased. As long as if I got it in my run, like I was collecting Wolverine and X-Men. So if I got an embossed cover in an X-Men issue, like X-Men 300 had an embossed or holographic cover, yeah, great bonus for me. You know, Wolverine 50 had a holographic cover.
But what was your reaction? Did you make
it? Was like, whoa, it was awesome.
Did it make you want it more?
Yeah, I think, no, Wolverine 15 had a die cut. That's right. I remember I've showed it in a video before. Had the die cut. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, stuff like that I loved, and especially if they were in my run. I absolutely loved that. But Marvel did it more than DC, absolutely, back then. DC, they didn't do a lot of that, DC. Marvel were all over it.
Image were hardcore.
Image, absolutely. They were very hardcore with Brigade and Youngblood, and I can't remember if Spawn did one, like a holographic or a foil, but I can't recall if they did.
I don't know, I can't remember seeing a foily Spawn cover,
no,
to be honest.
I don't think so. But the rest of them did. They were just cool covers.
All right, so something else that was a bit of a topic in that sort of article that I read was as the sales of floppy issues started to die down, came the rise of trade paperbacks. I mean, were trades not really as heavily printed as they are, you know, obviously today?
Put it this way, that's what, 30 years ago? So 30 years ago compared to now, that's 30 years. So from then till now, that's 30 years worth of graphic novels compared to 1985 or 86, 87 compared to their back catalogue. So there wasn't much back catalogue compared to what there is now. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot more now. But now they have a process now, and you see this was happening in the 90s. So they release a book in floppy, and then they release it in trade because they double up their sales. That's how you run a business. You maximise your sales. They try to bank on, you know, the FOMO. I don't want to miss out. Instead of waiting for the graphic novel 6 months later or a year later, sometimes depends how long the floppy go for. So 6 issues. You know, you may be looking at around 6 months waiting for a graphic novel for the trade. Whereas if it's 12 issues, then you're looking at around a year for the trade. So it depends how long you're willing to wait for the story. You know, you want to be left behind, read the story later, or you want to read it on the go.
But sometimes it's better to read it all together anyway.
Correct, and some
reading
people
it month
do that
by month, I don't know how people can. Like, I never remember what happened in the previous issue.
Because you got all that peroxide seeping into your brain, mate, for years and years. That's what it is.
20 years. All right. Final thing, I guess I'll ask you, because you've been, you know, doing this for a long time.
Hashtag golden age.
For a long time. How would you compare comics? What are the biggest differences between late 80s, early 90s to now?
The art is one thing.
Art's changed massively, yeah.
It's really on top of the list.
Do you prefer the older art?
Absolutely.
It's got a different feel.
I think they wrote, the artists, because they came from an earlier era where the art was focused. So I find that the older comic books, the art, the characters, their body language, their facial expressions would portray what they're saying. A good example is Jim Aparo, who, when he was doing Batman, the way he drew his cape, it was flowing, it was always flowing.
It's huge.
But it was always flowing, unless he was standing still. But if he was angry, it showed him in his face, in his eyes, or if he was surprised, you know, his eyes would be big and in surprise. So they did that a lot back then. But whereas these days they don't do that. They spend time more on the detail than on the character, I find, in today's comics.
When I go back and read like a story,
absolutely.
But like the dialogue, there's so much more dialogue in books than there is today. In some ways, I kind of prefer less, to be honest, because I can read it quicker.
Again, the peroxide.
But like they were really wordy back in the day, right? I mean, I really
because they were intelligent. because they were written really well, and you have to. If you're writing a character, you want to bring that character out in every sense of the word. And that character has to do with story. It's like watching a movie with no story, and they're banking on the special effects to make the movie great. It's like that, right, these days. Whereas back then they couldn't rely on that. They had to rely on story. They had to rely on characters. That's massively changed. The dialogue, absolutely. You know.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you guys for watching. I apologize for the camera angle today. I somehow have misplaced my tripod. It normally lives in the car.
You see, it's the peroxide. It's the peroxide.
So right now my tripod is two short boxes and a trade paperback.
He forgets everything.
How about that angle that I used with the trade paperback? That's pretty clever.
Very clever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, very good. Yeah, hashtag unprepared guy.
I was pretty prepared today.
No, you weren't.
I mean, I know I read from my phone.
How could you? You're unprepared. You forgot your tripod. Jeez. There again, peroxide. You forgot. 5 minutes in.
If you guys are new to the channel and you enjoy this, there will be a playlist to the Noob universe, our previous show, the Noob Rebirth, and also the original one, the New 50 Noob. How about I put all three playlists down there?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
And you can watch the history of how our relationship has grown over the years.
And also, like in the comments, continue the conversation that we just had. If you like, give us your insight. If you're golden age, just like me, and you have an insight into that era of, put it in there, write it in there, give us your experience.
And also something else I don't mention enough is obviously if you do have something that you would like us to talk about, leave it in the comment because we'll definitely put that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And tune in for more of the Noob Absolute podcast. We're going to do more of those. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I'll leave a link to the Spotify maybe in the description below as well.
Yeah. And if you like this video, hit the like button like this. See the like button? Like that.
And then say bye, Mark.
Bye, Mark.
And keep it simple.
Superman is here to save the day. And whereas originally Superman could never fly, he could only jump really high. Hence the song. He
couldn't fly.
Is that a bird? Is that a plane?
Yeah.
Superman, able to leap tall buildings in a single bounce sort of thing. And then they made him fly.